Hello and welcome to the next video motorcycle ride. If you're a new viewer and you haven't seen my videos before, welcome. If you're a returning viewer, thank you for coming back. If you've come across my videos through YouTube, through Facebook, if you've come across my videos from Facebook, then by all means follow the links and go to my YouTube channel and subscribe. And there you'll find, I hope, lots more interesting videos I'm happy for you to share. And even if you don't subscribe, if you just watch, I'm happy for you to share them with other people and talk to other people about them. Your feedback will be welcome and comments will be responded to when I'm able to. In this ride, I'm going to be riding from Goulburn east towards Braidwood. Braidwood is about 80 kilometres from Goulburn and about halfway between Goulburn and the east coast at Bateman's Bay. So if you're not familiar with my videos, technical details first of all, the bike I ride is a Kawasaki Vulcan Voyager 1700, and if you go to my YouTube channel you will see a short video, about less than a minute I think, that gives you more information about my bike. The cameras that I use are GoPro cameras. I attach them to the screen of my bike with a suction cap thing holder like you use for holding a phone or a GPS system, and I essentially turn on the power, press record, let them shoot the video, and I record the audio later. I do that because the the microphone in the camera is sensitive to the engine noise, picks up the transmission noise, and also picks up the music from the bike, but it doesn't pick up my voice. I think in part because I wear a full face helmet, and I don't have an in-helmet microphone, so I record the audio afterwards. Sometimes the audio is about things to do with motorcycling, other times it's just to do with whatever it is that I'm thinking about at the time that I was riding, or something that I've heard about on the news or something like that that I feel like talking about. In my first set of motorcycle videos, I talked a lot about motorcycling and all the things that I knew about it, and I've made some comments in other videos. So I think I've pretty well exhausted that topic, but it may be that I come back to it every now and again. Alright, so at the moment I'm on the Braidwood Road heading out of Goulburn, just going towards the area I think it's called Viola Stadium now. It used to be called the Basketball Arena, and now it's called Viola Stadium. And I will be passing under the two bridges that make up the Hume Highway bypass in a few moments. On the right hand side is the old railway workshops where the XPT trains used to be serviced. They're now serviced in Orange, but they used to be serviced in Goulburn, and a lot of other railway memorabilia. I should say, when I'm doing these talks, there is no script. I don't sit down and write out what I'm going to say. I just talk about whatever comes into my head, and sometimes it might appear a bit disjointed, or I might just be talking about the topic and then suddenly go on to talking about something to do with what's on the road. I hope that you can still follow the thread of what I'm talking about. If the subject that I'm speaking about doesn't interest you, then of course just turn the sound down and enjoy the road. So I'm going under the highway bypass overpasses at the moment, and on the left hand side there, just going past the white fences, is a property called Goulburn, which is a property that belongs to the heirs of Hamilton Hume, who along with William Hovell were the two people who explored, or the two white people should I say, who explored the route between Sydney and Melbourne, or Corio Bay, which is where Geelong is now. And Hume is, the Hume Highway comes from the name Hamilton Hume. The people who own that property are his heirs and relatives. I don't know exactly what the relationship is, but I know they are his heirs and relatives. Now the road we're on at the moment is, as I said, the Braidwood Road. It's in pretty good condition at this stage, but there are parts of it that are not so good. At the moment you can see that it's marked with lines down the middle, and there are lines on the edges, and there are also those white guideposts, all of which are marks of a good road. I think it's probably a B class or maybe even a C class road, but as soon as I start telling you how good the road is, you'll come across sections where you'll find it's not so good, where there are the sinkholes, divots and potholes and shoulders that aren't much good, and all of those other things that present themselves as a danger, especially to motorcyclists. I comment about the road every now and again while I'm riding, because the state of the road is something that's important. Well, it's important to everybody, but it's certainly more important to motorcyclists. Okay, so what I did want to talk about on this part of the ride is something that I heard spoken about on TV the other day, in which I read a few articles about, and that's something called toxic positivity. I hadn't heard this term until probably 3 or 4 months ago, but I've heard it quite a lot in recent times. And it seems to me that if you add the word toxic in front of something now, you suddenly give, obviously by the use of the word toxic, there are suddenly lots of bad connotations to it. For example, toxic work environment, toxic debt, toxic masculinity, and I'm sure people can think of other terms, but I'm specifically talking about toxic positivity, as it was just talked about, as I say, on the TV the other day. Now, before I talk about it, let me just say I live in New South Wales. I live in Goulburn, which is about 200 kilometres southwest of Sydney and about 100 kilometres northeast of Canberra. All of New South Wales, as of the 23rd of August 2021, is in lockdown because of the coronavirus. The degrees and restrictions that apply to the lockdown depend on where you are. And I must say that in Goulburn we have a pretty good, the lockdown is pretty good. And by that I mean I can come and go wherever I want, whenever I want. I can go out and exercise for as long as I want, as many times as I want during the day. I can go to most of the shops whenever I want to, those that are open. And I'm required to log in with a QR code and wear a mask. But other than that, there seem to be very few restrictions. I know that in parts of Sydney there are now curfews from 9 p.m. till 5 a.m. I know that many schools are closed. I know that many people are working from home or not working at all. And so when I'm talking about this toxic positivity thing, as I am not in any way trying to trivialise the difficulties that people are experiencing handling COVID, the difficulties that children are experiencing not being able to go to school. You would have thought at one stage not going to school was every kid's dream, but I think the fact is that most children do prefer to go to school than be at home and learn. And when they're not at school, they're not mixing with their friends, they're not mixing with their peers, they're not socialising, and all the things that they like to do at school besides learn. When you ask them sometimes what's the best thing about school, they say recess or lunch or playtime, but all those things that they get to do at school besides English and maths and reading and writing and arithmetic and so on, they're not getting to do. And I'm not trying to trivialise any of the things that people are experiencing as a result of those things. Just at the moment, I'm going through a little village. It's called Taranaville, which is about 5-10 k's out of Goulburn. There's a school there, one teacher school, I think, and a few farmhouses. The school exists because it's far enough out of Goulburn for people to say, well, that's the closest school to me, and I don't want to have to get on a bus and go into Goulburn. And I think, anyway, people who go to the school are very happy with it. Okay, so we're on the road. We're heading towards Braidwood still, and I still haven't got to the point of this toxic positivity. And what I understand it means is that Monty Python-esque always look on the bright side of life philosophy, and the feeling that saying to people, if you just buck up, little camper, and put a smile on your face or something, then everything will be good. And I'm not suggesting that's the case at all. I understand all the difficulties that people are having as a result of COVID, and I'm not in any way trying to trivialise those or minimise those. There are some serious mental health issues and emotional issues that people are experiencing. But by the same token, I think that given the situation that we're in, and that is that we're all locked down to some degree or other, there are lots of restrictions on what we can and can't do. We're not able to mix with our friends, we're not able to see our families, we're not able to socialise, we're not able to go out for meals with people or go to the movies and those kind of things. And those are the things that people enjoy doing. Just interrupting again, we're going past Wakefield Park, which is a motor racing track that's just out of Goulburn. It's very popular with all sorts of motor racing enthusiasts, but also lots of people who do car reviews go there and test their cars out. It's been in the news a little bit lately because the owners want to extend the hours of operation and the number of days of operation. The council have put restrictions on them by saying, well, you've got to consider the noise factor of the people who live around. All right, back to the toxic positivity thing. The gist of it, as I understand, is if people are saying, well, just put a smile on your dial and think about that guy over there or that person over there. Their situation's worse than yours, so what are you feeling so grumpy and miserable about? What I want to say is that given the situation that we're all in at the moment, and we honestly don't know, and I don't think anyone else knows, when that situation is going to change, or when it changes, how it'll be markedly different from what it is at the moment. The idea that suddenly everyone's going to be immunised and we're just going to go back to the life we had before the COVID thing came, I'm not sure if we can make that assumption, and I'm not sure if we should make that assumption. So I think that life is going to be difficult for us for a long time to go. So what I'm leading to with this, talking about this toxic positivity thing, is that the idea of saying, well, given those circumstances, perhaps we should celebrate the little things. And to give you, to explain what I mean there, let me give you a couple of examples. I'm a runner. I like to run, and on Sunday I went off for a run, and I took my son. He was on a bike, and I was showing him. He's been living out of Goulburn, just come back to Goulburn after living away for a few years, and he's just come back to Goulburn. So I took him on one of the courses that I like to run on a regular basis to show him the course, and we got to sort of look at the countryside and so on. And we ran about 12 Ks, and at the end I stopped all the timing devices and so on. I run the 12 Ks in something like 1 hour and 11 minutes or something like that. I don't know how good a time that is compared to anybody else of my age, but that's not the point. Among the things that I've found out is that my timing device, which is a Garmin Vivo HR or something, awarded me the fastest 10K of 56.19 minutes, and said that that was an improvement on my previous time of 56.44. So doing the maths, you can see I shaved 25 seconds off the previous time. I think that was in part due to having my son there on the bicycle encouraging me and making me run a bit faster than I might otherwise have done. When I checked my statistics later on, I found that I'd run a 56.09 or 03, I beg your pardon, at one stage. So I've still got some improvement to go to get to that time. But nevertheless, 56.19 I thought was a pretty good time for 10K, and so I felt pretty good about myself for a couple of hours. I didn't walk around strutting around like a peacock, but I felt pretty good. I thought I'd achieved something, and I posted it to the social media that I use, and I know that other people who are runners in Goulburn who know me were happy and interested in the result and were giving me positive comments. So I was happy with that, and I could celebrate that small achievement. The second thing that happened the same day is that for the first time in something like 4 or 5 months, you can visualise that, get those number of days in your head, 4 or 5 months, it was the first time in 4 or 5 months that I'd gone out of my house without wearing 4 and sometimes 5 layers of clothing. Now that sounds, excuse me, almost impossible, but if you think of it, I started with a t-shirt, a sloppy joe, a tracksuit jacket over that, then another jacket on top of that, and sometimes a parka on top of that, and beanie and gloves, because Goulburn is notoriously cold in winter and windy, and I would go out 3 or 4 times a day in 4 or 5 layers of clothing to walk my dog, to get some exercise as well as the running. And so for the first time since about April the 25th, I was able to do that. And although the weather turned a little bit coolish the next day, that is today when I'm recording this, for that day I was able to look around and say, well, the warmer weather's coming, maybe. Spring might be on the way, and so that's the thing to celebrate. The trees in the park have got blossoms on them, and the flowers are beginning to bloom, and spring is on the way, allegedly officially on the 1st of September, which isn't that far away, but most people in Goulburn know that spring doesn't actually arrive until the long weekend in October, so we could potentially have 2 months more of cool to cold weather. But nevertheless, the one day of being able to go out of my house with just 2 layers of clothing, and at one point I was sitting on my front veranda in a t-shirt, and after a while I had to go inside because the material that we've got an awning over the front of our door of our house, and the roof of that material, the top of that awning is an acrylic of some sort material, and it was magnifying the heat and I was getting hot. So when I think about this toxic positivity and saying, always look on the bright side, just buck up a little camper, put a smile on your dial, everything will be fine. I'm not by any means suggesting that people having serious mental health issues and serious emotional issues by not being able to get out and socialise and all those things that they're able to do normally, I'm not by any means suggesting that they're not real and that they're not things that people should be concerned about. But at the same time, I'm saying sometimes in every day there's just one little thing you can grab hold of for a period of time and say, well, that was a good thing. Seeing other people out and talking to them and just greeting them pleasantly. People wanting to pat your dog, for example, the weather being warmer, the sun coming out, enjoying a good meal, or having a sandwich for lunch that you made for yourself that was tasty, whatever. Little things like that just are the things that bring a certain amount of, I don't know, brightness or joy to your day, are a good thing. And for families that are really struggling at the moment, maybe just celebrating those little things is perhaps that's about all we can do at the moment, but at least it gives us something to look to hold on to and to say, well, that was a good thing that happened that day. All right, well, that's my thoughts about this toxic positivity thing. I'm still on the road heading towards Braidwood. As I told you, I passed Taranaville and Wakefield Park, and this video runs for about 17 minutes, so we've got about a minute and a half to go. And you can see this is, again, some of that sort of open woodland country. You can see the trees on either side of the road, and just set back from the side of the road on the right-hand side there. But for most of it, it's open grass pasture country. I think here is still fine wool, merino wool, certainly sheep on the sides of the road, but there is also some cattle, and I think that they are beef cattle. Just coming up to, I don't know if you'll be able to see it yet, but it'll be on the right-hand side, a large white building that's called Inverology. At one stage it was an agricultural college. At another point it was a drug and alcohol rehabilitation centre run by a group called WHOS, which stands for We Help Ourselves. And now it's a monastery for the Pauline Fathers, which is a branch of the Catholic Church. At the moment I don't know if there's any people actually in training there as priests, but I will cross over the Inverology Bridge of the Mulwaree River shortly, and that'll be the end of part 1 of the video. So I'll say thank you for watching and thank you for listening, and I will be back to you in part 2 of the video in a little while. So thank you, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will talk to you again in the next part.